Hi, this is Sarah Barnett, and this data overview is going to be for Woodland High School. Specifically, we're going to be analyzing the EOCT scores from about 2011 to 2014. The purpose of the data overview is to identify student learning problems at Woodland High School, specifically in EOCT courses, so that we can develop an action plan for targeted improvement in our weakest areas. There are some limitations to the data that we're going to look at today. Not all 2013-2014 EOCT and demographic data have been released yet for public information. The Georgia Department of Education estimates that district results will be available about July 16th, school level results about July 30th. State results have already been released. So the 2013-2014 data that is included in this presentation is only preliminary. It was retrieved from school level reports that are considered unofficial. What does our school look like? Well, in terms of enrollment, you'll see that last school year we had about 1,382 students. This is our lowest number of students enrolled in the past about 5 years. We topped out at about 1,550 in 2010, and we've been trending downward. This has been common in our county as numerous families have moved out during and after the economic recession, and we've had some redistricting as well to try to balance out our school populations. As far as demographics are concerned, our school is predominantly African American. You'll see here over 50% Black in the last school year. Our white students still comprise a pretty significant portion of our population, though that is trending downward. Asian and multiracial are pretty small groups in our school, and our Hispanic population is still relatively small, but you can see here it's been trending upward, somewhere around that 8 or 9% for the last school year. As we look more closely at what last school year looked like, you can see that we're over half African American, about 35% white, and then about 14% other minorities here. As far as other student subgroups are concerned, we've been pretty consistent as far as our students with disabilities. You'll see here that we've been right around 12-13% of students with disabilities, and then very, very few students who have limited English proficiency. We do not have a large ESL or ELL program at Woodland. However, we do have a significant number of students who have been considered economically disadvantaged, and that number has been increasing. So you can see we're somewhere up above that 40% mark at this time. The graduation rate for 2013 is included here. This is not last year's graduation rate. That's not yet available, but the 2013 graduation rate was at 84.5% with about 15.5% of students not graduating on time. How does this graduation rate look compared to our district and state? Well, we've been pretty consistent, whereas our district and state have been increasing, but we've also been above the district and state averages. So we're looking pretty good there for our graduation rate. All right, so what does all this mean for our EOCTs? Let's look at how we're performing on our end of course test. You'll see here a breakdown of it meets, exceeds, and does not meet on each of our end of course tests. I tried to group them according to subject area, and then I did include down here the Georgia High School writing test, even though this isn't considered an end of course test. We know that the writing test will be given for the last time next school year, and then really all of these EOCTs are going to be replaced with Georgia milestone assessments that are supposed to be comparable but perhaps a little bit more rigorous in nature. If we pay attention to the blue, we'll see that our 9th grade lit and our American lit EOCT had very few students not meeting standards. Certainly higher in our sciences and those mid 20% not meeting the standards here. In economics and U.S. history, we're down into the mid 20s, and then up very significantly in our math scores with quite a large percentage of our students not meeting the standards. There are some reasons for that, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So what we'll be doing next is looking at each subject area, comparing that subject area to district and state averages. We'll look at our does not meet, meet, and exceed ratios, and then we'll try to identify any achievement gaps in those particular subject areas. We're going to start with English here, and you can see that our 9th grade lit EOCT is trending upward. We've been consistently above district and state averages. Our American lit EOCT had kind of a strange year in 2012, 2013, went very, very low here, below our district and state averages, but we rebounded in 2013 and 2014, and we're back up above the state average. That district average has not yet been released for American Lit. As far as the breakdown of our does not meets, meets, and exceeds, you can see over here in ninth grade lit that we have gone down as far as our does not meets, but even more important, our exceeds percentage is increasing and really had a substantial increase this past year. Very similar story over here with American Lit, except for this strange kind of 2012-2013 school year. Our does not meets is decreasing, whereas our exceeds is increasing here. When we look at our Georgia High School writing test, you also see that we kind of bottomed out in that 2012-2013 school year. We were following this downward trend of the district and the state, but like the district and the state, we rebounded in 2013 and 2014, and we had a more significant gain than they did, went above the district and state average last year for our Georgia High School writing test. One thing we do want to look at our Georgia High School writing test for, however, is a possible achievement gap here between our students with disabilities and our students without disabilities. We had a very large achievement gap that year of 2012-2013. Only 53% of our students with disabilities met the standards. We went back up to 75% here, but still we've got a pretty large achievement gap here with 97% of our regular program students meeting standards on the writing test, but only 75% of our students with disabilities. So our English Language Arts Summary, our 9th Lit EOCT scores consistently above state averages. Those are increasing. American Lit had kind of a strange year in 2012, 2013, but we've gone back up. And then our writing test scores have made a reverse, and they've increased dramatically, though we do still have this achievement gap between our students with disabilities and without disabilities. When we start to look at science, however, biology right here in blue is going to be our school. Kind of been all over the place, although following some district and state averages. We did again drop very low in 2012, 2013, and although we're going up, we're still below the district, we're still below the state average. And we've been consistently over the past 2 years below the state average there. Physical science, a little bit less promising here as far as the result, whereas our district and state have been going up. You can see this last year in 2013, 2014 went down in physical science. As we look at the breakdown, just kind of similar story here, just kind of up and down in exceeds and does not meet in our biology. Pretty much the same story over here, up and down with our physical science. As we look at physical science, though, now we don't have this data available for the student subgroup for the last school year, but if we look at the 2012-2013 school year, we do see that we've got a little bit of an achievement gap here between our students who are economically disadvantaged and those not economically disadvantaged. Economically disadvantaged has more students not meeting the standards, whereas not economically disadvantaged has fewer students not meeting the standards. So certainly something that we could look at more closely in our data teams. So science summary, bio EOCT scores had this dramatic drop in 2012, but we've gone back up. We are above the district average, but still below the state average. But physical science is certainly an area of concern for us. We've got this achievement gap in our economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged students. I think I would recommend an item level analysis for these scores. We really need to determine what's the cause for these consistently low scores. Are there certain strands or domains of physical science studies that our students just aren't getting? As we look at social studies, we see our economics EOCT and our U.S. history EOCT. U.S. history over here trending upward above district and state averages and made a significant increase this last school year. Economics has kind of been up and down. We had a great year in 2011-12, but went back down in 2012-2013. We did have a slight increase last year, but we're below those district and state averages. As we look at our breakdown of exceeds, meets, and does not meets, you kind of see the same thing here in economics, up and down between our meets and does not meets and exceeds. But over here in U.S. history, we have a consistent increase in exceeds, a consistent decrease in does not meet. We do have an achievement gap here between our white and our African American students in economics. You'll see as far as does not meet, only 20% of our white students did not meet standards, whereas 29% of our black students did not meet standards. Even bigger achievement gap up here in our exceeds, with 42% of our white students exceeding, but only 23% of our black students exceeding. So certainly an achievement gap there that we want to address in the coming year. So social studies, econ had one really strong year, but now we're back down below district and state averages. We do have that achievement gap between our white and our black students, especially at that exceeds level. But then U.S. history is trending upward. We've been consistently above state and district averages. Exceeds is increasing, and our does not meets is decreasing there. All right, so when we look at math, we see here just bottoming out, bottoming out. But what you will notice here with this star is that in these years where we had a plummet, this is when we moved from our GPS test to our CCGPS test. So we moved from Math 2 to Analytic Geometry and from Math 1 to Coordinate Algebra. Yes, everybody is struggling with math. From the district, statewide, everyone's struggling with math. But what I think we want to look at here is that this blue line is above district and state averages. And so we are at least doing better than our peers at the district and at the state level. Kind of the same story here. Of course, we see that our does not meets is going to dramatically increase. We did have kind of a slight increase in the second year of coordinate algebra for that CCGPS test there in does not meet. So we might start to have a trend upward there, but something that will be seen in the coming years. As far as math goes, our analytics geometry scores obviously dropped significantly, but they are above state averages. Coordinate algebra scores fell slightly, but now we're equal to state averages. I think really for math, the most significant analysis down here is going to come at the teacher level. Not that we want to pit teachers against teachers, but we really need to kind of zoom in and begin to determine, are certain teachers using strategies that are more effective than other teachers? You know, if we're all struggling with math, we've got to figure out what can work and what's not working right now. So as we look at the strengths of the entire school, we see that the 9th grade Lit EOCT scores above state averages, the exceeds group is increasing, Georgia High School writing test and bio EOCTs both made turnarounds in the last year, our U.S. history EOCT is increasing, and then our analytic geometry and coordinate algebra scores are above state averages, even though we've had numerous changes in our math curriculum. As far as areas of improvement, I've identified 3 areas that I think the school should look at for the next year. We do want to look at this large achievement gap that we have between students with disabilities and regular program students on the writing test. We want to look at our physical science scores, why they've been below district and state averages, and look specifically at this achievement gap between our economically disadvantaged and our non-economically disadvantaged students. And then as far as the economics EOCT, we want to look at why we've been slightly below state and district averages, and then determine the cause of that achievement gap between our white and our black students there. I do have a few suggestions. I think that our teachers need to reconsider use of USA Test Prep. This is some great test preparation software, but it has many possibilities beyond mere drill and practice. And then, of course, we need to utilize Point to increase the number of formative and summative assessments that we're giving and to analyze those results. You know, we really can't do anything except for compare year-end data to year-end data. But it's those classroom and benchmark assessments that can help us to inform our instruction and adjust curriculum as necessary. As far as what I would like for you guys to do today as we break up into our data teams, we're going to be looking at and considering how drilling down to subgroups would help to reveal further patterns in the data. I did a little bit of that for us, but I want us to look at that a little bit more in depth. And then we want to start beginning to think, what are some of the strategies that we can employ to increase our student performance in physical science, economics, and math? Before we look at those strategies, though, we want to start predicting what are some of the causes for these specific student learning problems, because this year we're going to be verifying those causes through some research so that we can make sure that the strategies that we select are really targeted strategies that can lead to improvement. So, thanks for listening today.